and they want to make an investment to change their lives, they get priority because it's a big deal when you make a decision like that to do something like that, to work with a coach. So anyway, we are, for those of you that are new, going over the power of now. This was a book study that was requested by those of you that have been attending the daily lives for the last 3 weeks. And so with the power of now, we're going to leave or pick up where we left off yesterday on page 19 if you have this same version of the books. Again, for those of you over here, I already apologize to Instagram. Sorry, I'm late. Had a last minute private client that wanted to work with me. And so I wanted to make sure to get her signed up, because when they sign up, they get immediate access to all the lessons that are going to help get them started from my framework. Hey, Rotunda. All right. So if you guys don't know, one more announcement for those of you that are new. On the 26th of August, I will be holding a totally free class on teaching you how to protect your energy. A lot of times we get into these situations where you pick up negativity from other people in our lives, or we go out in public and, you get into that negative energy or crazy energy and it drains you, or we are very sensitive and compassionate. So we give and give and give all the energy, and people take and take and take all the energy. And so we feel depleted and burned out and get resentful, all of those things. So this free class is just a gift to you, for you to be able to learn how to not only protect your energy from negativity, but also to protect yourself from your own negativity, because sometimes we make it in our head. And then also the class will help you to learn how to set proper boundaries in your relationships or in the circumstances that you're in physically. So there's that. So today we're going to go where we left off. We're talking about the mind, because a lot of people think that they are their mind. And we talked about yesterday how we experience life. We were taught to experience life through our senses. And so through the things that our ears and our nose and our mouth and our eyes and our fingers pick up, and that is called a sensory experience. And through those sensory experiences, they go through the brain, and that is how we interpret our environment around us. However, there's this part called the mind. And if I ask you what the mind was, you're going to think it's the brain, and it's not. The mind is a mental processing type of thing within our body that tends to run the show, because we think things, and because we're thinking things, we identify with the things that we think. And so we can say, I'm doing this, I am this, this is my label, this is what I look like, this is my image, this is my name. When in all actuality, if you start to approach your life from a sense of being, you're going to understand that you're not any of those things at all. And so that's kind of what we learned yesterday. It's very powerful lesson. So if you need to go back and catch up, the replay is on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Instagram. So pick your favorite platform. So where we are now is, he says, when you listen to a thought, because this is what we learned yesterday, when you start to slow down and you start to take a pause and you listen to your thoughts, you start to understand that you are not the thinker. If you can listen to your thoughts, then you are an observer of whatever that thing is that's thinking. You're outside of that. So when you listen to a thought, you are not only aware of the thought that you had, but you're also aware of yourself as a witness to that thought. When you do that, remember, this is where I told you guys that the consciousness, another set of consciousness in your life unlocks. If you do not understand how powerful this simple thing is, you need to listen to that over and over and over until you get it. Because you usually live as if you are the one experiencing your thoughts, when in fact, when you observe your thoughts, you understand that you are an observer, and the thinking thing is outside of who you are as a being, not outside of your body, but who you are as a being. And that's where true consciousness, enlightenment, centeredness, all of that, that's that space that you want to live in for most of your life, because that's where, as we progress through this book, you're going to see that you start to eliminate sorrow and suffering. As you start to listen to your thought, you feel a conscious presence That presence that you are feeling as you are observing your thoughts is you, your being. And what that can start to help you do if you learn how to use this appropriately is that you can start to not let these thoughts have so much power over who you are, what you think, how you feel, how you move through life, all of the things, because you are no longer energizing the mind by identifying with it. This is the beginning and the end of involuntary and compulsive thinking. Think about how powerful that is. We identified that if you played the game me and Greg played and you started to think about your thoughts and you just start saying them out loud, no matter how dumb they were, you would find that there's a lot of mental activity going on with your brain. But when you start to tap into a different level of consciousness and a different level of awareness, you're going to start to realize that there's something more to life here than I previously thought. And it'll even start to feel different. And you'll start to understand that all of this compulsive thinking that happens on a day-to-day basis will start to slow down. And it won't maybe even mean as much as you have let it mean in the past. So therefore, it won't control you as much. And so these thoughts will start to have less power over you. And if your thoughts have less power over you, guess what that means? Your life expands. You have a better life. And when these thoughts subside, you experience a discontinuity in the mental stream that he calls the gap of no mind. I simply call it being centered, being not in your brain and not in the world, but just being. He calls it the gap of no mind. And what you will want to do at that moment is see if you can make those gaps longer and longer and longer. The gaps where you're not living all up in that mind, or the gaps when you're not living all up outside of yourself either. Because the more that you can make those gaps longer and longer and longer, that centeredness, that beingness, or what he calls the gap of no mind, this is the beginning of your natural state of felt oneness with who it is that you truly are in your soul. It's the soul of who you are. And you also start to live life as a more present being. And as you live from that space, this is what I teach. And this is, I've never really articulated it this way to my clients. So I'm going to go back and talk to them about this. But not only are you fully present, but when you are in that space, the gap of no mind, the centeredness, the being, just being who you are, regardless of everything that's going on around you, it raises your vibrational frequency and it gives life to your physical body. And let's think about this even a step further, because the ladies that are in my personal mastery membership know we've been talking about manifesting. We're going to be talking about quantum leaping, all of that. So in order to do that, you need to raise your vibrational frequency to a high level. And so if you can start to be in this space of centeredness, of being, and not identifying with your mind and letting your mind control yourself and what you experience and what you think and how you feel and all of the things, you start to be able to manifest a better quality of life. Because one of the things that brings in a better quality of life is you raising your vibrations to be a match for a better quality of life. All right, so give me hearts, give me comments if anything is unclear, if you need me to expound on something, or if it's making sense, just let me know. So instead of watching the thinker, because that may be a little hard for you, what he's going to do is tell you some other activities that you can do. If what I'm saying to you doesn't make sense, then here's some other things that you can do. You can create a gap in the mind stream by simply directing the focus of your attention into the now. Anybody that's taken my intuition class, anybody that's worked with me privately, or if you've ever heard me talk about my own personal struggle and my own personal journey in my spiritual journey, what I would do is I would take these long walks. And I took these long walks, especially when I was pulling myself out of, rock bottom, air mattress, studio apartment, lost everything I owned, had to rebuild my life on my own 2 feet. I was doing this more because I was trying to get in touch with my intuition because, like he's trying to say, when the labels get stripped away, your boyfriend or your spouse or your girlfriend gets stripped away, the love of your life, your home, your finances, your job, and you have to really rebuild yourself because you've identified through your mind with all of those things that you thought were important. And then when they're gone, you don't know who you are. You have to start all over, right? And so I knew that because I didn't know myself, the first goal was, well, who am I? So on my lunch break, I would take these long walks and I would purposely look at how are the trees blowing? What direction are they blowing? What sound are they making? What do I hear? What do I see? Like I really was super present in the moment, not only to build my intuition, but I didn't know what I was doing at the time. I was also becoming more present in the world around me. And by being in that moment now, not in my head that usually has you in the future or the past, or not, identifying with all the things that are causing me the pain and strife because I was going through a lot at that time, but just being present in the being of who I was and paying attention very closely to what I was experiencing and what was around me, I started to become more in the now. I started to live more present. And that is the essence of meditation. A lot of times we intentionally will meditate, we'll turn on music, we'll get our quiet time, we'll do all of these things. And what are we doing them for? We're doing them because what we're trying to tap into, what that practice is trying to get us to do, is to tap into that being state so that we don't forget that in spite of everything that we think, in spite of everything that we believe or identify with or don't identify with, in spite of all the pain and struggle that we're going through, when we can tap into that power of who we truly are as a being before all this junk that we are experiencing has ever been created, we were always beings. When we can tap back into that, that is truly what meditation is trying to get you to do, tap into that. And so if you can learn to live in that space, you don't really need meditation, but because of the noise and because of the identification with the mind and the identification with everything that's going on outside of us, we never tap into that feeling. And so now we use these external tools such as meditation in order to do that. In your everyday life, you can practice being present. You can practice meditation in your daily activity. And all you have to do is give the things that are going on around you your full attention. Pay close attention to every step, every movement, even your breathing. Be totally present. Because when you're totally present, not slipping into your thoughts, not slipping into your pain, not slipping into your worry, your doubt, your anxiety, but slipping into what is going on that you are experiencing right at that moment, not what your mind is telling you to identify with, then you're going to start to notice and feel that a lot of the stuff that we've identified with and we let impact us, it really isn't that big of a deal. And you'll just inherently start to feel that the more that you do this. Does sitting in silence work, or does it have to be meditation? Meditation is sitting in silence. So I like to call, people have made meditation formal, but as you can see, meditation can be a couple different things. You can try to do meditation, right, by sitting and listening to music or doing a practice or a ritual of meditation, because that provides discipline. And when you start to discipline your mind, much like we learned about the habits lesson that we did the past 3 weeks, it starts to hardwire you to be able to step into a state much quicker. So when you meditate with a tape or a song or a guided meditation or hypnosis or things like that, what they're doing is just making it easier for you to concentrate on a thought or what they're saying or a practice or a ritual, so that it makes it less easy for you to get pulled out or you to get distracted. However, you can sit in silence, and that can be meditation. Because the meditation is not the activity, the meditation is the state. We call it an activity now in today's world because that's what it makes sense. I'm gonna go meditate. But truly what you're doing is you're creating a state. And so that's what you're going after. That's what I teach. And Issa, just to take it a step further, just like when people say they want to be more spiritual, and so they burn sage and have crystals and tarot cards and whatever, those are not things that make you spiritual. That is a tool that helps you tap into a spiritual energy. So for me, meditation is the same way. When we say we're going to meditate and we do something that is more formal, what we are doing is using a tool to get us into a meditative state, which is what he's talking about. And so that can come in a multitude of different ways, from the guided meditation, the hypnosis, sitting in silence. I have a meditation class, and I teach you can even do active meditation where you're running, and you know how you get in a zone, or you fold clothes and you get in a zone and your mind starts to wander and you start to observe those thoughts in your head. So it can happen a multitude of different ways. Or like he said, you can just go on a walk, and as you're going on a walk, you start to just connect with the little bitty movements and steps and your breathing and all those things that are happening. The thing about this that's also powerful is that you are unable to focus, like truly focus on more than one thought at a time. So it also slows down that lack of discipline you have when you just let your mind run the show and all of these thoughts are going on. This also allows you to start to have more control over your mind as well, by only thinking of one thing at a time. Like if you're thinking about your breath, you're not going to be able to think about something else. You can try it, practice it. You can't actively think about two things intently at the same time. All right. So the single most vital step on your journey toward enlightenment is this. You need to learn to disidentify from your mind. Yeah, you can sit in silence. Yep, that's the state. That's the state. Your mind is an instrument, a tool, because a lot of people, when they hear me or some other teacher or mindset teacher or spiritual teacher telling you that your mind is an instrument, a tool, because we've been so taught to self-identify with that for so long, we don't understand what that means. We feel that our mind is really us. We feel like we're the ones having all these thoughts and mental activities. And so when somebody tells you to disidentify with your mind, that's just something that's going on, much like your heartbeat or much like your blood pumping. That's the same thing that your mind is. It's a process in your body. You may not understand it, but the true way that you use your mind is as a tool, just like the meditation, just like if you use cards or astrology or any of those things. Your mind is a tool, no other than that. And it's supposed to be used for a task. So your mind was designed for you to pick it up and use it as a task. And then when you are done with it, you put it over to the side, it does its thing, but then you as a being are moving on to other things that are important and more purposeful to you. But most people don't put their mind down because they think, I have anxiety, I have worry, I have doubt, I need to think about this. And they let, again, their mind control them. They're a slave to their mind. And for those of you in the membership, we talk about this, and he is talking about it here. He says, I would say about 80 to 90% of most people's thinking is not only repetitive and useless, but because of its dysfunction, it's often negative in nature, and so therefore it's harmful. And we're going to close with that, but I want to unpack this because I want you to understand this. A lot of you are living a life where you know deep down in your heart, you want to have a better life. You want to be better. You want to do better. But for whatever reason, you're not letting yourself get there. One of the main reasons why we're not where we want to be is because there's something going on in our mindset. And it could be as simple as examining through presence, through the now, through the gap that he's talking about, where you just stay in that energy that we've been talking about, you start to think, look at your thoughts. And what you're going to notice is that most of the thoughts that you had today were the same thoughts you had yesterday, the same thoughts you had last week, probably the same thoughts you had last month or last year. And if you know now that you've been letting your mind run the show and that's what it's doing, and you haven't created the life that you wanted to create or even gotten close to taking the steps to move in the direction that you want to go, then it probably is because, number one, you're identifying with your mind. So you're thinking the same thoughts day in, day out, most of the time, right? They're repetitive. They're useless thoughts because you're not using your mind as a creative tool to allow you to move forward toward the things that you want. You thinking day in and day out about dysfunctional things, things from the past, things that are going to happen in the future, the things that you don't want, all of those things. So most of the thoughts that you are even thinking that you are being a slave to are negative thoughts. So therefore, you're identifying with something that is causing you harm in your life that is not even who you really are. So the lesson in chapter 1, and we still have some ways to go, is for us to start to understand and ask ourselves the question, when are we going to stand up for ourselves and not allow ourselves to be a slave to our mind? And the minute that you can answer that, and the minute that you can start to do some of these simple activities, observe your thoughts, pay attention to what's going on around you, be present in your breath, you're going to start to understand what it really feels like when you're not a slave to your mind. And as you start to identify with that feeling more and more and more through practice, it becomes easier and easier. Alahalis, oh, thanks for joining me. She said, great question. And then Issa said, I'm in that situation. Yeah, 80 to 90% of most people are in that situation. And unfortunately, no matter how hard a lot of people try, they continue to think these same repetitive negative thoughts that are harmful. And it actually becomes an addiction. And because you don't even feel like you can stop the thoughts, right? At that point, I can say, okay, you need to start doing all these things because you can use your mind as a tool and put it down when you want, turn it off and stop it. And you guys are probably listening to me like, what are you talking about? No, because you get so addicted. Hey, Ashley, you get so addicted to thinking all the time and letting your mind control you that you don't even feel like you can control it and stop it. You don't feel like you can stop the worry. You don't feel like you can stop the negative thoughts. You don't think that you can stop that negativity that you allow to block you from living your full life. You just let it continue to run the show. And when you look at the financial situation that you want for your life, you don't have it because you let the mind run the show. Or the relationships that you want in life, you don't have them because you let the mind run the show. Or any big goal that you want to accomplish, or even the way that you see yourself within this world, because you let the mind run the show. So we're going to stop there. Yeah, it's an addiction. And unfortunately, that's why there are people. That's why I do the work that I do, right? Because I know it's an addiction, and I know it's hard for people that have gotten in a habit of a certain mindset and a certain paradigm to turn that off, especially by themselves, when for 80 to 90% of the time, almost every day for years at a time, you've been thinking the same thing, and you feel like you're going to be able to move forward by yourself. And that's not always the case. More often than not, most people they need help with this. And so I don't want you to ever feel bad about yourself. I want you to now recognize that if you are attending these lives and you are hearing this lesson, that it's not a coincidence. There's some information here for you to be able to transcend some of this stuff and take your life back and really start to live your life outside of the matrix that you've created, not only in your own mind, but in the matrix that you're living because you've chosen to play a part in the world. And then you start to be not a slave to what's going on inside of your head and your mind processes. And you not only stop being a slave to what's going on in the world around you, You get to have more choice and control over when you pick up your brain, how you use your brain, when you want to be creative, because truly your mind is there for you. If you want something in life, your mind's only job is to help you process and be creative so that you can have whatever it is that you want. And if you're not using your mind in that way, then you're not using your power to its full capacity. So hopefully this book will continue to help give you some information to inspire you. If you would like to learn what it feels like to work with me privately so I can help you do this much faster and consistently and hold you accountable, then you can just reach out to me. I'll send you email to learn more about private coaching. Otherwise, I will see you all tomorrow, the same time, hopefully in the same place, and we will pick up where we left off with this powerful book. I'm glad that you all joined me, and I really love the participation and the questions because it leads to a rich discussion. So I'll see you all tomorrow. Ratana says she wants it off. You want it off. It's just a decision, right? You decide, and then the next thing is you act. You act. You now know what you need to do. Practice it, and then we'll talk tomorrow. All right. Bye.